When I saw the title for your single, Watered Down, my first thought was Trace is probably throwing a rock at the changes in country music and whatever and all that and everything. Of course, when I listen to it, it's sort of like turning that corner for us. As hard as it is to admit sometimes, there is a peace in at least accepting, the fact that we're not getting any younger. That's for dang
Yeah.
sure. And there's a few things you just got to compromise in your life.
Yeah, and things you have to accept and recognize, like you said, and that's what the song is about. It's just a reflective piece that just says, get to a point in your life where you got to temper your vices, because it reminded me of that old Waylon song, "Ain't living long like this,"
Mm-hmm.
you know. So at some point you got to temper it a little bit.
Yeah.
We still fly like gypsies, just a little closer to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We still like our whiskey, but just a little watered down.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Was there something in your life? Did you have a real turning point that you went? Or is it just a culmination of things?
I think it's just culmination. I've just, yeah, it's been a rough few years, and but think I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and but along with that relief also comes that awareness, that this is the new normal. This is, like I was talking earlier about working in the woods. You got to, like, well, that log there, yeah, 20 years ago I'd have reached and snatched it up, but I think I'll go get the tractor.
That'll hurt you.
Yeah. I think I'll go get the tractor so I can walk tomorrow.
I laughed and told the story about one of the last times we talked, and you were talking about, I think your daughter was like 3 years old, or talking about her where she was smarter than the dog. And that's kind of sort of, I don't know if you remember
Oh yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
that, but
Yeah, I got in some trouble about that, I think, from time to time. Yeah, I've had so many kids, and I got grandkids now, and yeah, you just wait for that day when they finally get smarter than the dog. The dog knows not to touch that. That's hot. Don't touch. So yeah,
but it's kind of the same thing for us, isn't it?
yeah. Well, yeah. I uh, I remember when I was young, and I was hauling hay with my daddy one day, and he must have been 40 something, 50 maybe, I don't know, and just worked me in the dirt, and I just couldn't believe it, because I was in college at the time, and I came, I was playing football and stuff, and came home that summer, and we're hauling hay, and I was in good shape, and man, he just worked me just right in the dirt. But then I remembered the next day he didn't do too much, you know, and so it's like that now. Yeah, I can go out there and probably work a young man in the dirt, but he'll be able to do it again tomorrow, and I won't be able to. And that's kind of the thing with music too now. It's like about 3 shows in a row is about all I'm going to want to do right now, because on that fourth one, I'm going to start getting scratchy, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
not going to be, I'm just not going to have the control, so
Mm-hmm.
it's getting to that point with everything. You got to start recognizing your limitations and acting accordingly.
I mean, you're still a great singer. By the way, great job on the anthem the other
Oh,
day.
thank you.
Which is not something everybody. That's usually when most singers know. Okay, I have my limitations, but you can still deliver for however long it is. You may know that, but man, your voice is good as ever. This is a great sounding album. But a lot of people these days feel like with downloads and especially streaming albums don't really make any sense. There's no reason to put 10 songs together because people aren't ever going to hear them or whatever. But did you ever have that consideration, or is it always for you? I want to put a whole body of work together. And did you have a message that you were trying to deliver with putting that many songs together?
No, I didn't. The simple truth is, we went in the studio and started working on some stuff 2 or 3 years ago, and we just kind of just kept, because I still enjoy that process. That's something that I still get off on. I mean, the tracking days, and a lot of people don't know what that is, but but tracking days in the studio, when you go in there with that incredibly talented group of musicians and you take a raw piece of material and turn it into a finished product and create something that didn't exist before, that's just something that I still feel very fortunate to be able to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Nashville, Tennessee, we have that pool of literally some of the greatest musicians in the world to draw from, and to have an opportunity to go in the studio and spend time with those guys is just, it's a blessing. I mean, really, we're so fortunate to be able to do that, and I still love doing it. And we were working and getting some things together, and then we got a record deal, and it was really the record label that said, yeah, give us just old school regular record,
Put an album together.
So we cut 14, 15 tracks, and they narrowed it down to however many they wanted, and so. But yeah, I don't know why it makes any sense anymore to do those full length albums either. Because. But here again, I'm at another place in my life, my career, and my business career where I recognize that really the people that are buying those records now are collectors,
Mm-hmm.
And hardcore fans that want the official. They want the
Something
artwork.
they can hold in their
something
hand.
they can hold in their hand. They want the artwork. They want, the liner notes. They want all that stuff, which you don't get with a download. So, so for a guy like me, I mean, I don't know what that translates into nowadays for how many records I'm going to sell, but I pretty much know that the ones I'm going to sell them to are those hardcore fans.
You've cut every kind of song. Is there anything now you feel like you won't do? I know, like with my last album, New to This Town was a song about, a guy with his heart broke or something. And I remember critics banging on me going, you've been married 35 years and why are you singing? It's like, I got a good memory, dude. We're artists, of course critics will do anything to piss you off. But for you, I mean, you've gone from Hillbilly Bone to, songs about a soldier that got killed. You've crossed but as you get older, now, I mean, I think this single really, to me, is a great core song for a guy like you in your position. It really rings true.
The only thing that I kind of have a problem with now is I get pitched a lot of songs that obviously these writers are writing for younger cats, and lyrically, it just doesn't seem to me to rise to the maturity that where I need to be. Stuff I need to be singing. Sometimes you just get a lyric that just, I can't sing that.
Some teenage girl in the seat beside you.
Yeah, I can't sing that. It's a great song. Thank you for pitching it to me, but I can't sing that. Sorry. So.
All right, I'm not going to get off in the weeds on this, I promise, but you were one of the two, you and John from our camp, who won The Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
When you were doing that show, did it ever dawn on you that Donald Trump could run for president?
No, and actually I was wrong all along. When this first started up and he threatened to run, and people asked me about it, and I'm like, he's not going to run. He's not going to run. So I was wrong in the very beginning. I've been wrong every step of the way. When he did declare he was going to run, I thought, well, he'll just get in there and have some fun, and then he'll get out, But I was wrong, and so I've been wrong all along about this deal.
Me too. Me too. It's funny that was
And then people ask me all the time, like I'm supposed to know,
Yeah.
Well, what do you think he's trying? I don't know what he's doing.
How much time did you actually spend with him? When
Not
you
a
were doing the
lot,
show?
not a
Yeah.
lot. He'd come around, hang out some, and at the most time I spent with him was at the finale of that All-Star Celebrity Apprentice thing, and I spent a good deal of time with him that day, but that was about it. But he is what he is, and I tell people that all the time. He doesn't turn it on and off for the camera. And you hear those people now that have a meeting with him, have a one-on-one, and they come out of that meeting saying, "Oh wow, he's charming," and blah blah. He is. You spend time with him one-on-one, and you walk out there going, "Hey, he's a good dude," So
It's probably not even him tweeting.
I don't know, but if it's not him, he needs to fire whoever's doing it.
So your number 3 car, Earnhardt used to tell me all the time, and me and you both do a lot of different stuff. He used to. We'd have these conversations about all our sideline stuff that we were having fun doing, and at some point in the conversation, I always go, "Hey man, don't you forget that number 3 car," which was him telling me, "Don't forget your music and playing and singing. That's your thing."
Yeah.
But that being said, Deepwater Down,
Deepwater Horizon.
Deepwater Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
I was going the wrong way. Deepwater Horizon, cool, really strong, cool movie, and your part was nice job there. But you've done a lot of acting. What was it like being out there on that rig? I know you, like me, been around the oil business and oil rigs and pipelines and stuff like that. Being on that set, knowing what happened out there with those actors, what was that like?
I recorded one song several albums ago. It was a song called "Missing You" that Tim Menzie wrote, and it's about working offshore and along with all the danger and the things that could happen and all that, the thing that really affected you the most was being away from your family and your wife and all that stuff. And as I watched the movie, that was what really affected me. Those guys, and Wahlberg's character, he constantly wanting to talk to his wife, and that was the main thing that was the hardest part of the job, was being away, all the time. And then sometimes it got dangerous and your adrenaline would start pumping. And and I tell people a lot of times, they ask me why, because I've said it publicly a lot, and they ask me, why did you enjoy that job? And I think it's just because anytime you have a job where there's a possibility you're going to get killed today, that's pretty intense. It's hard to go from that gig to something where
Yeah.
that you don't get that adrenaline rush. But I was supposed to do the crane operator in that movie, but I couldn't fit it into my schedule. I would have had to spent more time on set. And when they finally got around to shooting the movie and everything, it was just in the time of the year where I couldn't give them that much time. But I was up in the Northwest, and my agent called and said they want you to do a scene in the movie anyway, just one day, do a scene. I said, I don't want to fly all the way to New Orleans, just do one scene. And she said, well, you get to throw Mark Wahlberg around the lobby of a hotel. And I said, okay. All right. I'll fly to New Orleans to sling Wahlberg around the lobby of the hotel. That was a lot of fun. And Peter Berg, who directed the movie, God, that dude is so intense. We shot the scene a couple of times, and he came out and he just said, you're not giving me what I want, man. You got to really get rough with him. I said, I don't want to hurt the guy. He goes, just, go after him, And I said, there's another reason that this scene's not working for me, because when I got on him, they had a guy come up and get me off of him, a BP company man, to get me off of him.
Uh-huh.
And I said, the problem with this scene is, for me, if I was really on him, that guy couldn't get me off of him. So you either need a bigger guy or you need two guys. So he said, all right, let's get another guy. So they got 2 guys. And then it worked for me because they could physically get me off of him, whereas before they couldn't do it. So then he pushed me against the wall and started poking me in the chest with his finger and cussing me in front of everybody and made me mad. And then he ran off and yelled action, and that was when they got the scene they wanted, you know. So, and then he told me to just rant and rave in the lobby of the hotel. And Mike Williams, the guy that Wahlberg was portraying, who was a consultant on the movie, because he was the guy on Deepwater Horizon. And his daughter was there, and I walked over to her and I said, honey, have your mama take you outside because I'm about to say some ugly words here, and you need to. I don't want you to be in here when I do this. So luckily they didn't use all that stuff, but I did rant and rave a little bit. But I was glad they let me be in that movie. That's fun.
Great. Good job too. Well, that's interesting to hear about that, because I love that process. But everything you said makes sense to me, because it's you know, if you're really gonna go, and you know, I've done a couple of fight scenes in movies where, and probably unlike you, I've had my ass whipped. You know, because I was really
killed
big
in the last 2 westerns I've done.
Well, me too. But you always wonder, you know, how much is, and you know, in one of the first movies I did, threw a guy's shoulder out. You know, that was a cop in a rough scene like that.
Yeah,
it's like, man, you got to act, not, you know, you don't have to freaking hurt me. I'm like, well, where do you draw the line where it looks real?
It is kind of, and it is. I've what I've experienced in a few westerns mostly, but a few other movies too, is when you get in a fight scene and you're with a stunt guy or whatever, they're always really nervous because they know that you're not trained in that stuff, and they're afraid you're going to hurt them.
Yeah,
you know, and I've had them just go, okay, now you got to do it like this, all right? If you don't do it like this, you're going to hurt me, man. You got to calm down and do it like this. And, yeah, they make sure to show you how to do it. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming by, man. Love.
We're going to start the interview now?
Yeah, we're going to get going here in a minute.
Oh, okay.
And I guess it's kind of cool just letting you go, no matter, you've got that great voice of yours, you know, Firestone and all these things. You can always talk.
That's been a lot of fun.
If you get to where you're 90 and can't sing anymore, I guess, you know, as long as you want to,
well,
you've got that great voice that'll never go away.
You know, I may, you know, as soon as James Earl Jones and Sam Elliott decide to stop doing all that stuff, maybe I'll get some more
you're
work.
Younger than that. But there you go. I mean, it's a fun thing, and something I enjoy doing it, and I've got a little skinny voice compared to yours, but even doing this, you know, it's fun.
You know, though, I still, like you said, I don't forget the 3-car. I mean, you know, I dance with the one that brung me, and as long as people want to hear me sing, I'm going to want to go out and do it, you know, and all this other stuff will just have to wait until I can get around to it.
Yeah. Well, great album. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Seriously, because it's a lot of work, but you want it to come out with something that you're proud of. And in all sincerity, I love this single.
Thank you.
I think it's really good. And
it's my favorite song on this record, and I've never done that before. I've never told anybody what my favorite song on a record was, even though I've had favorites. You don't want, because it's like picking your favorite kid, you know. But this is my favorite song on this record. It just nutshells where I am in my life, and I just love it.
It's cool. I'll let you go, but I do want to ask you how the girls are.
They're all good.
Good?
They're all good.
Yeah.
Kenzie's at UT. She's doing good.
Congrats.
Yeah.
What year is she?
She's freshman. Yeah. She's doing good. So.
Yeah, because she was the 3-year-old we were talking about.
Well,
And it flies on by, don't it?
Yeah.
Wow.